I wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. My friend's apartment had been empty when I arrived, the kind of quiet that makes your own breathing sound intrusive. And yet there she was, standing near the window, hands wrapped around a mug of something warm, the way sunlight caught the faint silver in her hair. She wasn't expecting me, but somehow, I couldn't look away. "Don't leave, not yet," she said, almost a whisper, like she was talking to herself, but when I blinked, she was looking at me. Those eyes, soft, guarded, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten, held something that shouldn't exist between us. Something forbidden, maybe, but impossible to deny. I shifted my weight, suddenly aware of how young I probably looked standing there, half slouched in my hoodie, hands awkward in my pockets. She tilted her head, a little smile tugging at the corner of her lips, as if she knew I was thinking about every reason I shouldn't be here, and every reason I couldn't leave. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and old books, a quiet warmth that contrasted with the cold drizzle outside. My fingers brushed the doorframe, almost as if reaching for stability, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. Her gaze didn't falter. Not once. "You didn't have to come," she said, setting the mug down. Her hands lingered over the counter, fingertips grazing the edge, small tremors that I caught even from a few feet away. She wasn't nervous. Not exactly. Just human. Fragile in a way that drew me closer instead of pushing me away. I wanted to," I said, voice uneven, too eager. I don't know. Thought maybe you'd want company." And God, I sounded pathetic. But she didn't laugh or look away, she simply nodded, and that made my heart stutter. She nodded, and for a moment, it felt like she'd opened a door I wasn't supposed to step through. There was a pause, a silence that stretched just a little too long, but not uncomfortably. It felt charged. Electric. I found myself noticing everything: the soft crease of her sweater, the way her hair fell in careless waves, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the steam from her mug. My hand itched to reach out, to brush a stray strand behind her ear, but I didn't. "Not yet. I think you like being here," she said, voice low, teasing but not fully joking. Maybe," I admitted, and I wanted to say more, to confess the way my mind spun every time she looked at me like she'd seen the part of me I didn't even show my friends. But words failed. I swallowed. She didn't need my words. She just knew. She stepped closer, and my stomach twisted with something I hadn't named yet. Desire? Fear? Something both. My pulse picked up as she picked up the mug again, lifting it slowly as if to give herself courage. And then she laughed softly, a quiet sound that made me want to lean in just to hear it better. "I'm not sure you should stay," she said, almost reluctantly, eyes glancing toward the door. But when she looked back at me, something unspoken hovered there: longing, risk, the faintest trace of a question. Before I could answer, the sharp chime of the doorbell cut through the quiet, slicing the tension. I froze. She froze. We exchanged a look, a slow, loaded glance that said everything without a single word. Someone was here. Or maybe something was about to change everything. And suddenly, the idea of leaving felt impossible. The doorbell had stopped echoing, leaving a silence that felt heavier than before. We didn't move. I didn't want to move. Something about her, standing there with that quiet confidence, made me feel both invisible and unbearably exposed at the same time. She finally set the mug down and walked toward the window again, hands folded over her stomach. "It's complicated," she said, almost to herself. I waited, knowing the words weren't for me, or maybe they were. I remembered the first time I met her, months ago, at my friend's apartment. She had smiled politely, offered coffee, and carried herself like someone who had long ago learned to keep disappointment close but hidden. She was divorced, she'd said once in passing, and I'd caught the slight tremor in her voice, the trace of a past that still hurt, even if she hid it well. I shifted, uneasy. The age gap wasn't the only reason this felt dangerous. She was someone's aunt, my friend's aunt. Someone I shouldn't be thinking about this way, someone whose life was already layered with expectations and memories I wasn't part of. And yet, every time she laughed softly, or brushed her fingers against the edge of a counter, my chest thumped like I'd just run a mile. "I used to live here," she said suddenly, eyes on the rain outside. "When my kids were younger. They'd come home from school and I'd try to hold everything together, you know? Sometimes I'd fail." Her voice cracked, just a little, and I stepped closer instinctively. I wanted to say something reassuring, but all I could do was watch her. There was a kind of weight to her, a softness underneath that controlled surface. I realized she'd loved hard once, maybe more than she should have, and it had left her weary. And me. I'd never been able to stop thinking about her since that first day, caught somewhere between admiration and something deeper, something I couldn't quite name without feeling guilty. "I shouldn't be thinking about this," I murmured, almost embarrassed. "I know it's wrong." Her head tilted, and she studied me with those careful eyes. "Maybe wrong isn't the right word," she said. "Maybe complicated fits better." Complicated was an understatement. But there was something thrilling about it too, that sense of risk we both understood but didn't speak aloud. My hand itched to brush hers, just for the reassurance that this, whatever this was, wasn't entirely imagined. I stepped closer anyway, despite the caution humming through me. Our shoulders brushed. I felt the small, involuntary shiver that ran down my spine when skin met skin in the wrong way at the right moment. She didn't pull away. Not fully. Just tilted her head slightly, a question lingering in the air either of us would voice. For a moment, the rain outside was louder than our breathing. My heart raced, mind spinning with all the reasons this shouldn't happen, all the reasons it couldn't. And yet, in that tiny shared space, it felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of us, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. She finally lifted her hand slightly, fingertips brushing the back of mine. A single, tentative touch that said more than words could. I didn't pull back. And then, a soft laugh escaped her lips, like a secret we weren't ready to speak out loud. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the tension between us hadn't eased. My fingers were still brushing hers, that tiny spark that made my chest thump in a way I couldn't rationalize. She looked at me, lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. "Maybe you should go," she whispered, almost urgent, almost pleading. My stomach dropped. Part of me wanted to obey. Part of me wanted to stay, to close the space between us until the world outside didn't matter. I don't want to," I said too quickly, my voice cracking in a way I hated. She frowned, shaking her head, and for a moment I thought I'd overstepped. We'd been caught in that fragile, dangerous bubble before, but now the air felt charged with something more. Something that would get us in trouble if anyone knew. The door creaked open suddenly behind us. I jumped, heart in my throat. Her brother, my friend, stepped in, drenched from the rain, backpack slung over one shoulder. He froze, eyes flicking between us, just long enough to notice our proximity, the unspoken tension lingering in the space. "Oh," he said. "Didn't know you'd be here." He sounded casual, but I could feel the weight in the air. My hand retracted, hers tightened around her mug. That small spark of contact vanished, leaving me hollow. I cleared my throat, suddenly aware of the age difference, the taboo we were dancing around. My pulse thudded painfully. She looked at me with an apologetic glance, something that made me want to pull her close anyway, despite the guilt buzzing in my veins. "I should check on dinner," she said, stepping past me. I wanted to follow, but my legs felt like lead. My voice caught when I tried to call her back, but all that came out was a weak "Wait." Her eyes flicked toward mine, that familiar, dangerous softness. There was longing there, restraint, and fear all wrapped together. It made me ache in ways I wasn't supposed to. I wanted to tell her to forget the world, to forget my friend, to forget everything that made this impossible. But I didn't. Instead, she paused by the counter, fingers brushing the edge, lips trembling just slightly. "We can't," she whispered, almost to herself, but I heard. My hand twitched, reaching for hers again, but I stopped, caught in the gravity of everything forbidden. The room felt smaller suddenly, charged with secrets we weren't allowed to admit aloud. I swallowed hard, trying to ground myself in reason, in guilt, in every rule I'd been told not to break. And yet, despite every warning, my heart kept leaning toward her. And then, without warning, she looked up, eyes locking on mine, a half-smile that said nothing and everything at once. That tiny, teasing, reckless curve of her lips pulled me closer, closer to temptation I knew I shouldn't give in to. Before I could decide, the sound of her phone buzzing on the counter sliced through the air, sharp and sudden. She glanced down, fingers hovering over it, and I realized the world outside our little bubble was about to intrude again. Something new. Something unavoidable. And just like that, the tension stretched even tighter, threatening, intoxicating, impossible to ignore. The apartment felt smaller than ever. Every movement, every glance carried weight. I could feel it, tight in my chest, burning behind my ribs, the kind of tension that makes your hands shake even when you're trying to look casual. She was on the phone, voice low, calm, but I caught the tremor, the subtle bite in her tone. My stomach sank, jealousy twisting me in ways I didn't want to admit. Someone else was there. Someone else mattered. And yet, my own desire refused to back down. I tried to step away, tried to ground myself, but my feet felt glued. Every part of me leaned toward her, the pull unbearable. Her laugh, soft, impossible to ignore, cut through my self-control like glass. "You can't keep doing this," I muttered under my breath, though I wasn't sure if I meant her or me. She hung up, slipping the phone into her pocket. Her eyes met mine, steady, calm, almost cruel in their serenity. "Doing what?" she asked, but the question wasn't about the phone. It was about everything, this tension, this unsaid pull, the dangerous closeness we'd cultivated. I can't stop thinking about you," I blurted, words raw and unpolished, unfiltered, exposing all the foolishness I'd tried to bury. I swallowed hard, heart hammering, but it was too late. I'd said it. The air shifted. Her lips parted, hesitation flickering across her face, and for a moment, I thought she might reach for me. She didn't. Instead, she stepped back slightly, as if to regain control, as if my confession was a rope she wasn't ready to grab. "You don't understand," she whispered. Her voice cracked slightly, carrying that fragile vulnerability I had seen before, the kind that made me ache. "I can't, not yet. It's wrong in ways you can't see." I swallowed, hand tightening into a fist at my side. Wrong. Dangerous. Forbidden. And yet, the magnetic pull between us refused to fade. My chest ached, eyes tracing the curve of her jaw, the faint tremor in her hands as she tucked a stray hair behind her ear. "I don't care," I said, low and fierce, though fear fluttered in my stomach. "I don't care about wrong or right. I need this. I need you." Her breath hitched, eyes widening, and in that split second, the world held its breath with us. I could see her heart in the way it flickered behind her gaze, the way her shoulders tensed and relaxed in the same heartbeat. Then the buzzer sounded, sharp, insistent. A visitor, a reminder of reality crashing back in. She froze, stepping away, hand hovering near the door. And in that pause, with the distance between us shrinking and expanding in the same instant, I knew we were on the edge. Something had to happen. Something we couldn't take back. Something that would change everything. And before I could move, before I could reach for her again, the door clicked. Someone was entering. And the air between us hung, heavy and electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. The door swung open, but it wasn't who I expected. My friend stood there, soaked from the drizzle, eyebrows knit, holding a small, crumpled note in his hand. The apartment felt suddenly colder, smaller, suffocating. "I found this," he said, voice awkward, hesitant. He held it toward us like it was a grenade. My stomach dropped. My eyes flicked to her. Her fingers tightened around the mug she'd been holding, knuckles white. "What is it?" she asked carefully, though her voice carried a tremor. My friend unfolded the paper, a half smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. It's a text from you. To him, he said, glancing at me. Says, I can't stop thinking about you. Time froze. My throat went dry. She went pale, lips parting slightly, the same way she had when I'd confessed just moments ago. I can explain, she whispered, stepping toward me, but my friend held up a hand. No, just tell me why, he said, voice sharp now. Hurt mingled with confusion, and I realized just how fragile this bubble we built really was. I opened my mouth, but she beat me to it. It's complicated, she said, voice trembling, eyes darting between us. It's not what it looks like. She stopped, the words caught somewhere between truth and fear. My friend shook his head. You should have told me. I thought we were friends. And now I don't know what to think. I felt a surge of guilt, heat rising in my chest. She wasn't the only one carrying secrets. I hadn't told him either. I hadn't admitted how impossible this was, how much I wanted to be closer, how much I wanted her. I started, but my voice faltered. How do you explain desire when it's wrong, when it's dangerous, when it could ruin everything? She stepped closer to me, hand brushing my arm in that tiny, deliberate way that made my chest tighten. The contact was electric and defiant at the same time. I didn't mean for him to find out, she whispered. Her eyes searched mine, full of apology, fear, and something else, something reckless. I swallowed. Part of me wanted to run, to hide in the excuse of youth, in the impossibility of it all. But another part, louder, more insistent, wanted to grab her hand and ignore everything else. My friend's phone buzzed in his pocket, but neither of us moved to check it. Silence fell again, heavier than before. Every unspoken thought, every stolen glance, every risk we'd taken was laid bare in that moment. Her lips parted slightly, the faintest sigh escaping. We can't stop now, she said, voice almost too soft to hear. Her hand lingered near mine, and in that suspended second, the world outside didn't exist. But the tension was unbearable. Heartbeats clashed with the memory of the note, the betrayal, the danger. Something had shifted, something irreversible. And in that silence I realized we were both standing on the edge. One wrong move, and everything could collapse. The apartment felt smaller than ever, the rain outside a soft, insistent drum against the windows. My chest was tight, words caught in my throat. I could see her clearly, every tremor in her hands, every flicker of doubt in her eyes. And for the first time, I understood the full weight of what we were risking. I can't not care about you, I said, voice rough, uneven. My hands itched to reach for her, to close the distance that had been stretching between us since the moment I'd stepped into this apartment. Her eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, all the guilt and fear dissolved. I've tried, she whispered, almost too quiet. I've tried to pretend it doesn't matter. But it does. More than it should. We stood there, the space between us charged with everything we hadn't said, everything we had tried to hide. I wanted to tell her that age didn't matter, that warnings didn't matter, that all the rules I should follow had no weight against this. But I didn't. Words weren't enough. Instead, I stepped closer, hesitant, heart hammering. Her gaze lifted to mine, searching, trembling, full of the same mixture of fear and longing I felt. My fingers brushed hers, and she didn't pull away. She let the contact linger, a silent promise and a question at once. I don't know what comes next, I admitted, voice low. But I know I don't want to walk away. Her lips parted, her breath catching, and I could feel her pulse against mine. I'm terrified, she said, almost breaking, almost pleading. But I don't want to run anymore. The words hung between us, fragile as glass. The apartment seemed to shrink until it was just the two of us, two flawed, human hearts tangled in a storm of desire, regret, and courage. I moved closer, careful, and finally, she closed the distance herself. Fingers brushed hair, hands rested lightly on shoulders, a touch both tentative and certain. Time seemed to stop, rain outside fading into background noise. We didn't need to speak. We didn't need permission. Our hands, our eyes, the tremor in our breaths said everything. The world beyond these walls, the age difference, the warnings, the betrayal, existed, but it had no power here. Not now. And yet, even in that closeness, there was uncertainty. A note of caution whispered between us. Life would demand answers, decisions, explanations. But for the first time, I felt seen. Truly seen. And that, even for a moment, was enough. Her forehead brushed mine, lips barely touching in a whisper of a promise. My heart raced, and the room seemed to pulse with the weight of what we'd dared to admit. Then, an abrupt knock at the door. The world outside intruded again. Our bubble shattered, leaving that fragile, electric closeness suspended, incomplete. We stayed frozen, foreheads together, breathing the same air, holding each other in a delicate balance of desire and fear. The moment was ours, yet unclaimed fully. And in that hesitation, I realized, whatever came next, we had crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But whether it led to everything or nothing, remained undecided. The morning light crept through the blinds, soft and tentative, just like us. The rain had stopped, leaving the city streets glistening, reflections shifting in puddles like memories refusing to settle. We sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, coffee steaming between us, but the warmth of it couldn't compete with the quiet electricity lingering in the air. Her fingers brushed mine, accidental, or maybe not, and I felt the familiar spark. Neither of us said anything. Words seemed almost unnecessary now. We'd spoken with our eyes, with silences, with every hesitant step that had led us here. I didn't think this was possible, I admitted, voice low. Being here like this, with you. She smiled softly, a little crooked, a little tired. I didn't either, she said. Her gaze flicked toward the window, as if remembering the past, the mistakes, the regrets, the doors she'd closed too soon. But maybe some things aren't meant to be perfect. Just real. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Real wasn't neat. Real wasn't easy. Real was messy, vulnerable, terrifying, but somehow worth it. We had risked the rules, the expectations, even our own fears. And now, sitting here, that risk felt like the only thing that had ever made sense. A memory drifted to the surface, our first hesitant moments, the brush of fingertips, the stolen glances, the words we hadn't dared to speak aloud. It felt like a lifetime, and yet, it had all led to this fragile, perfect now. She reached across the table, hands settling over mine. I felt my chest swell, the pulse steadying in a way it hadn't for months. We'll figure it out, she whispered. Together. I wanted to say so much more, but the words would have ruined it. Instead, I squeezed her hand, a small promise, and let the silence carry the rest. Outside, the world moved forward, the streets filling with people, the hum of life pressing against the apartment walls. Inside, though, time felt suspended. We didn't need certainty. We didn't need explanations. We had this moment, fragile and beautiful, and that was enough. I realized then that love wasn't about the perfect timing or the perfect circumstances. It was about choosing, again and again, even when it scared you. Choosing someone, even when everything said you shouldn't. Choosing to risk, to trust, to feel. Her eyes met mine, steady, open, and full of something I'd been craving without knowing it, understanding. Acceptance. A shared heartbeat in a world that had tried to keep us apart. The future was uncertain, messy, and completely ours to write. And somehow, that thought made my chest feel lighter, even as the old fears lingered at the edges. I smiled, and she smiled back, a quiet, shared acknowledgement of everything we'd been through, everything we'd risked, and everything we had yet to discover. And as the city woke around us, I knew this was just the beginning. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?